Protect the black woman. Now, a black woman in Georgia has been kept on life support. She is basically brain dead, but she's been kept on life support in order to be an incubator. Yes, she is 9 weeks pregnant and they're using her to keep this fetus alive while the woman herself is dead. So many times we see history repeating itself, and I feel like in this instance, it definitely is repeating itself. We know so many instances of black people being used for medical experiments, not caring whether they'll die from them, not caring the side effects and whatnot, just wanting to find maybe a solution to something or wanting to eradicate something. But guess who becomes the guinea pigs? It ends up being black people. And time again, we also see that women's rights, I'm sorry to say this, women's rights are being violated every day, everywhere. That's why I started by saying protect the black woman. Women's rights are being violated because if you know that this woman is brain dead, mind you, she went to the hospital for a headache and they didn't do the scan and whatnot, they didn't offer her the proper aid, and that's how she ended up being brain dead, and she didn't even know she was pregnant. And once they found out that she was 9 weeks pregnant, because of the law, the Georgia law, they can't take her off life support. They just have to keep her alive until delivery, and guess who's paying the medical bills? Her family. Imagine the trauma of not having a say in your daughter's life, right? You can't have a say in that, and then on top of all that, you now have to cover the medical bills because the state wants to keep this woman who is already dead alive just for her to deliver a child. Now, what if the child has some defects? What's going to happen with that? And I feel like the big picture is that it feels like it's just an experiment, right? This is basically just an experiment, and this black woman is suffering for it. Black people time and time again have had to take the fall for most of these experiments so that the other group can just, live life, live large, chop life. It's very sad indeed. Let's watch these clips and then I'll come back in at the end. But before we watch them, by the way, my name is Maaya. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please make sure that you go ahead and subscribe, do all the nice things, and just subscribe. I can't even sing to save my life, but do subscribe and let's dive in.
Did y'all hear about the woman in Georgia that they are keeping alive on life support, even though she's brain dead because she's 9 weeks pregnant? Did you hear about that? Her name is Adriana Smith. Her family is not allowed to take her off of life support because she's 9 weeks pregnant. Now, if you are 9 weeks pregnant, the likelihood of you even knowing that you're pregnant is actually very, very small. 9 weeks, not 9 months, 9 weeks. And they are keeping this brain dead woman alive on a ventilator so that she can be basically like an incubation chamber for this fetus. 9 weeks. And her family still has to pay the hospital bills. Send the flood.
I'm speaking today as a nurse, a legal consultant, and most importantly, a black woman with a voice in healthcare and the law. And let me tell you something. In all of my years of working on critical cases, I have never encountered anything like this. Adriana Smith, 30 years old, a nurse, a mother, declared brain dead after suffering a catastrophic medical emergency. In our field, that's not a coma, that's legal death. Brain death means no cerebral activity, no recovery. But because Adriana was just 9 weeks pregnant at the time, she's still on life support. Not for her, but for the fetus for 90 plus days. And her family, her mother, her partner, her young son, who thinks she's asleep, they've been told their voices don't matter because of Georgia's heartbeat law. The law says once fetal cardiac activity is detected around 6 weeks, no termination, no exceptions for brain death, no acknowledgement of Adriana's legal status as deceased. So her body is being medically sustained, intubated, monitored, housed in the ICU to grow a fetus with an unknown prognosis. Doctors already suspect fluid on the brain. The outcome is uncertain. This isn't just tragic, it is absolutely traumatizing. And it raises ethical and legal questions we just cannot ignore. Who decides care when the patient is legally dead? Why is the family's legal authority being denied? And what precedent does this set for bodily autonomy, especially for Black women? Nurses are trained to advocate. Legal consultants such as myself are trained to analyze the gaps. In this case, this is a massive gaping hole in law and humanity. I stand with Adriana's family, and I demand the law catch up with both medical science and compassion. Tell me, should a legally dead woman's body be forced to carry a pregnancy because of the law?
Adriana Smith's story is emblematic of the insidious American history of using Black people for medical experimentation and advancement. Here are 11 other examples. The Tuskegee syphilis study, whereby the federal government from 1932 to 1972 studied the effects of the non-treatment of syphilis by not treating the majority of the Black men involved in the study, even though they thought they were being treated the entire time. Henrietta Lacks, whose cervical samples were taken without her consent, and which ultimately formed the first immortal human cell line, which has been essential to countless medical breakthroughs, and for which her family has only been compensated in 2023. Founding of modern gynecology by J. Marion Sims, who experimented on enslaved women without anesthesia, the use of Black Americans in human zoos and freak shows, radiation experiments on Black Americans from the 1940s through the 1970s, continual medical experimentation on incarcerated Black people that continued through the COVID pandemic. For example, the Holmesburg prison, where Black people were the test subjects for skin products, chemical warfare agents, and other dangerous chemicals. The use and grave robbing of Black cadavers in the 19th and early 20th centuries for medical schools as they proliferated across the country. The forced sterilization of Black women. For example, Fannie Lou Hamer, who received a hysterectomy while unconscious and without consenting. This was so rampant across the South that this was ultimately termed a Mississippi appendectomy. The Negro Project, which sought to tackle Southern poverty through the use of contraceptives among impoverished Black people in the South. The development and testing of contraceptive technologies, including the birth control pill and Depo-Provera, but it was used on Black women first. And finally, the forced continued pregnancy of Adriana Smith, a brain-dead woman, to see if unconsenting women can be used as incubators and hosts.
People who can't handle it love to take race out of things, because how can you look at the situation with Adriana Smith and not see the Black maternal health crisis? How can you look at the situation with Adriana Smith and not see the medical malpractice that Black people, not just birthing people, not just mothers, Black people have been talking about for literal centuries? That we don't get the same standard of care, that our pain is not believed, that too many medical professionals often think that we are drug seeking as opposed to seeking help. Also, we cannot omit that gynecology started by the butchering of Black bodies, young Black bodies to be specific, young Black women, and even teenage girls, often given no medication for their pain, were literally sliced and cut into. Look up the history of J. Marion Sims. That legacy continues on with Adriana Smith's story. She literally went to a hospital to complain about a terrible headache. No one thought to do a scan. No one thought to do any tests. They literally threw medication at her and kicked her out, even after she tried to advocate for herself. If they had just listened to her, if they had just believed her, none of this would have happened, which is the cause of a lot of the issues and horror stories that happen with Black women, particularly birthing Black women. And the way y'all want to just erase race out of it because you can't handle the fact that this country was literally built on racism, that the medical field is rife with it, says more about you and your ability to handle facts and the truth.
Now that you guys have watched that, I hope it was able to shed light on some of the things that happened or that are happening, right? I like the video of the lady who was talking about the history of the Black people who were being experimented on, the syphilis experiment, the contraceptive experiment, and so much more. Like, there's a lot that's happening out there to Black people, and I don't think more people are aware about this. We need to be aware. We need to be in the know about what's happening to people just like us. But I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comment section. Please drop your comments down below. Subscribe. I'm watching you. Do subscribe. Like this video if you liked it, and follow me on all social media platforms at Journey to Maaya. Also, the clips for these videos is always in my description box in case you want to go to the platforms, by all means. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.